Like Steve said, I'm Clancy Nelson, Eastside local, professional snow geek, amateur taco connoisseur, nap enthusiast. And I am going to go through, you guys are in for two for tonight. We're going to talk about the state of the snowpack so far this season as of today. And then we're going to roll right into a little bit about the avalanche forecast and a lot about you, the readers of the avalanche forecast. So we're just going to jump right into it. Here's where we're at as of today. Yeah, not bad, right? I think we're actually getting pretty close to the median snow cover in the Eastern Sierra, finally. Took long enough to catch up. You can see those long, flat lines in there and those short spikes towards the end of the season. This is all from the Sesame Snow Study site at Mammoth Mountain. We tend to use that, especially for summarizing the whole range, because that, is this better for everybody? Yeah. Cool. We tend to use that because it's a well-maintained weather station right in the middle of our forecast area, and when things go down, actual professional humans go and fix it, rather than just being something that people get to next year. So that's where we're at today. So far this season, we've had 189 avalanches reported. A lot of those avalanches were persistent slab avalanches. Boo. Some of those avalanches during the storms were direct action avalanches, like storm slab avalanches, and a very few of those avalanches were wet snow avalanches. So this is where we started the season. We had a bunch of snow left over from last year, because last year was way better than this year. If you weren't here, you should look it up. So we had all this latent snow left over in the mountains, and we had a few tiny storms in October. So rolling things off in November, in places that didn't have snow left over, we had about 15 inches of snow on the ground. We got 3 inches of water, and almost all of that was in a storm in mid-November. So before that storm, this is my first field day on Rock Creek with another one of our forecasters, Sammy. About 6 inches of snow on the ground, and we were going to look at it if it killed us. After that storm, this is what the snowpack looked like. We got some wind-packed snow, and it was sitting on top of weak faceted snow, because all of that snow that came before November that was just sitting there in the cold, in the shade, early in the season, became these weak, sugary grains at the bottom of our snowpack. And that's going to be a theme here for quite a while. So then hitting in December, we got 12 inches of snow and 2.36 inches of water. And again, mostly in a stormy period from the 18th to the 21st. And sure enough, when ESAC finally realized that there was enough snow on the ground to start daily avalanche forecasts, we are already talking about those weak grains underneath the new slabs that have formed thanks to the storm and the wind. And persistent slabs were our #1 problem. So this is really a summary of the structure that we are worried about for most of the season. We have these weak, large grains near the ground underneath a slab of packed snow. And come January, we got more snow and more water for sure. But the forecasters that have experience forecasting in continental climates like Colorado, we are starting to look at that snowpack kind of out of the side of our eye. We were pretty worried about the structure that was out there in the mountains and how unused to a lot of Sierra skiers are to seeing that kind of thing last all season. And the difficult thing about this is we didn't get any of this 71 inches of snow in one big dump. We didn't get that crush and flush to get rid of that weak layer. We got what we called incremental loading. Are we done with the mic now?
You're done. Check the batteries.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? All right. So we were pretty worried about this structure. The problem is that because we were getting incremental loading, we didn't really have a slab on that structure. So the places that it did exist were pretty limited. It was kind of hard to communicate to people. When January kicked off, we got this storm that was 15 inches of snow and 1.3 inches of water. If you remember the slide from December, that's already more snow in the first storm of January than we got in all of December. It was the first time this season that the avalanche danger rose to considerable, which is described as dangerous avalanche conditions. And sure enough, here's a slide in Red Cone Bowl that somebody remotely triggered that probably failed on that weak faceted layer. But it's all right. Immediately after that storm, we got one of these gnarly north wind events. And it stripped quite a bit of the snow off of start zones that face north and east. And so we came to realize that there are a few slopes that did not have the persistent slab problem. So we got another storm with a little bit more water for January. This is the biggest loading event in terms of water in a short period for January. And it was the biggest natural avalanche cycle that we've had. And sure enough, after that, things changed real quick about the week of January 11th because we finally had enough snow redistributed into slabs by wind that we were connecting these places that just had weak snow with a slab over top. And sure enough, we got a whole bunch of feedback from the persistent slab problem. People were getting shooting cracks. They were triggering small avalanches. We were getting slope scale collapses on the persistent weak layer. If you went up and skied the resort on the 11th, you may have noticed some of the control work results. And these avalanches were the result of not that much snow, but a lot of wind creating a deep slab on top of that persistent weak layer. And sure enough, the next day, we had the one accident that we've had reported so far this year with a skier completely buried on San Joaquin Ridge on layers that failed near the ground. So February was a lot better. Anybody have some good skiing in February?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a couple good weeks, right? We got a lot more snowfall, a lot more water. It felt like winter was finally here. And we got some big dumps, right? We got some big dumps, and we started to talk about, finally we're getting enough snow that we can talk about storm slabs, we can talk about wind slabs, we don't have to talk about just persistent slabs. But those basal facets were still down there, and there was still something we were worried about. And it turns out that the first week of February, we got one of those big storms, and we still had a couple of avalanches that ran on the very facets on the ground. The last confirmed persistent slab avalanche ran during that storm. And about a week and a half after that, after a lot of legwork to confirm that the problem was dormant, we finally felt good enough to remove the problem from the avalanche forecast. So where we're at now, we're still dealing with atypical conditions. Has anybody seen coverage since the most recent round of storms in March? It's pretty good in some places. If you try to ski south of Mammoth, you might not think it's so good. Those gale force winds have really redistributed snow or taken it away. We've also had some challenges. Can I stop shouting? Awesome. We've also had some challenges just because of the variability here in the Eastern Sierra. Like I talked about the difference with coverage being really good here in June. Tioga Pass has a lot of snow right now. We also forecast for south of there in Rock Creek and Bishop Creek. We forecast for Virginia Lakes, which is hard to get to without a snowmobile, and is really high but doesn't have as much snow. So there's a huge amount of variability across our forecast area that we need to communicate. So that can be challenging too. For a long time this season, really the hub of instability for our persistent slab problem was in Bishop Creek, where people were skiing. But if you skied in only Mammoth, you're wondering what the heck we're talking about, right? So that can be a challenge. The whole reason we have this swing and a miss GIF is because our struggles with weather forecasting this year. We partner with NWS, and if you've been reading a lot of the weather forecast, you may have seen days where we were forecasted to get a foot of snow and we got 3 inches. My example is this last storm, the first day of the storm. I woke up 4 in the morning to write my forecast, and I had to call NWS on the phone and say, hey, so your weather forecast for the last 24 hours said that when I woke up this morning, I would have 1.5 inches of water and a foot of snow. And Sesame Snow Study site is reporting 0.2 inches of water and 2 inches of snow. So where are we at? And that's a challenge. We're on the border between 3 National Weather Service offices. There's Hanford to our west in the Central Valley that goes right on up to the Sierra Crest. There's Reno to the north of us, and Mono County's border with Inyo County is their furthest south and west part of their forecast area. And then Las Vegas, all the way over in Las Vegas. Forecast for Inyo County and Bishop all the way up to the Sierra Crest, which is the furthest west that they go. So when we want to issue an avalanche warning, we have to call a bunch of people. When we want to know what the weather is going to be like in our forecast area, we have to call a bunch of people. The orographics on the east side are really different because the way the mountain range tilts, there's a long gradual slope on the west side, and then it drops off precipitously here on the east side, which is why our terrain is awesome. But it also means that a lot of those storms get wrung out on the west side. Because the Sierra runs northwest to southeast, unless storms are directly perpendicular to that from the southwest, we don't get as much water. A lot of our water has gone north this year. Some of our storms have come parallel to the Sierra Crest. So there's been a lot of swing and misses with the weather forecast. And on days where we start the day with as much snow as we're going to get, and the wind's still happening, and I know what the danger is right now, and I can go from there, I can be pretty accurate. But if I wake up and I expected to have 1.5 inches of water, and I have 0.2 inches of water, and it's going to happen sometime today, maybe, that's really hard for me to have confidence in my avalanche forecast and to feel like I'm giving you accurate information. So we're working a lot with the National Weather Service to try to improve that product. So March started off real good. It also started off kind of interesting, because while we got a whole bunch of snow real quick, we also had winds that broke the windows in the top of Chair 6 at the lift tower. We had 160-mile-an-hour winds, hurricane force winds at the top of Chair 1. If anybody was looking for wind data from the top of Mammoth Mountain, it was gone. So we had some pretty big, cool avalanches further down in what some people might consider protected terrain. Because with gale force winds like that, a lot of the snow disappears. It gets sublimated into the atmosphere. You might actually find bigger avalanches where there's trees on the slope to slow that wind down. We had somebody catch an avalanche in action on Mount Tom, which is pretty awesome. And now, after the storm, this is where we're at. We have all kinds of awesome new surfaces to explore. We have dust on dirt, sastrugi. We have crust, and crust, and crust. It's full value east side skiing out there, folks. Get it while you can. So here's some good news, especially for folks that live here year-round, is that we are finally, today, at the median SWE snow water equivalent for the drainages that drain into Owens Lake, which is here on the east side. That's really cool. That's how much snow has fallen from the sky. But again, if you are looking for some entertainment or really like to find interesting skiing, you can drive south of Mammoth or far north of Mammoth and take a look at the way the wind has stolen a lot of that snow. And in some places, we're back to kind of where we were in November, December. So where are we going now? As of this morning, the National Weather Service has put out a 1 to 2 week outlook. They do this every single day, update these long lead models. And it looks like we might be below average in precip and above average in temperature for the next 2 weeks. It's snowing right now. We do have some showers in the forecast today, tonight, tomorrow. But we'll just have to sit tight and see how things go for the next couple weeks. See if we get a miracle March. See if March maintains what we've got so far. Kind of low confidence looking far out into the future like that. So we'll just have to wait and see.